On March 17, 2020, Dartmouth announced that all classes would be conducted remotely for the spring term. I was among a handful of international students who were stuck on campus. At that time, I had not seen my parents for almost a year. I had no family elsewhere in the US or any friends left on campus. I also did not know where I would be in the summer, nor when I would be able to fly back home. With the campus turned into a ghost town, I also hit a low point in my Dartmouth career. Following a rigid daily routine was my coping mechanism, as it gave me a sense of control. I spent most days in the study room on the second floor of Fahey by myself, taking online classes, doing homework, and eating the same bland food prepared by DDS. I was going through the motions day after day, but deep down I knew that I was not in the right headspace. On a typical April day, I was just doing some readings when I overheard a conversation outside my window. A man in his late 30s was FaceTiming someone over the phone. This is my favorite tree on campus. It dates back to the 1870s. He said with such enthusiasm, "I can stare at this tree for hours and not get bored." Intrigued by his excitement, I looked out of my window. There it was, a majestic elm tree standing right across from me. How did I not notice it at all? The scaly and callous bark, with deep fissures running vertically and intersecting with one another. The papery, light green samaras that carefully harbored its dainty spring seeds. The long, graceful branches diverging from the main trunk and reaching the sky. There in front of me was a living, breathing organism that survived 150 years of drought, disease, and blizzards. It is still going strong, standing its ground and sinking its roots deeper every day. My struggles were suddenly dwarfed in front of this old elm. The problems that constantly occupied my mind at the time appeared to be so insignificant in the grand scheme of things. Somehow, it also reminded me of the giant locust tree across from my childhood home. I remember my favorite pastime back then was sitting on the bay window of the living room and admiring the locust tree while sipping green tea prepared from a traditional Chinese tea set. I remember being so mesmerized by the statuesque tree and even wrote a poem dedicated to it when I moved out of the neighborhood. It's been so long since I had a similar moment of zen, a true connection with my natural surroundings. Looking at this old elm gave me an odd sense of deja vu, a feeling of home, and a deep desire to simply live in the moment and appreciate what's around me. The old elm became my cheerleader, my emotional anchor, and a constant reminder to be present, mindful, and resilient. I began journaling so that every day would no longer feel the same. I began to count my blessings and be grateful for what I've got. Despite all the uncertainty, I learned to not excessively indulge in futuristic thinking. Gradually, I began to notice so much beauty around me on campus. The Kentucky coffee tree whose seeds wrapped in tiny pods resemble coffee beans in the spring. The yellowwood in front of Rollins Chapel with its giant panicles of white flowers hanging down in the summer. The ginkgo tree near the Alumni Center whose leaves all fall on the same day in the fall. And the Norway spruce and the bema that resist the weight of heavy snowstorms in the winter. Now, I'm telling this story from the same study room exactly 1 year later, watching the little yellow samaras on the old elm gradually turn into a sprouting canopy of emerald leaves. This everlasting circle of life all seems unbearably repetitive and mundane, but it's so profoundly meaningful and inspiring. This time, however, I'm graduating. This time, however, I'm at peace. I know no matter where I go, the old elm will always stay within me, reminding me to seek beauty and meaning in life's most banal and trying times. After all, as Virginia Woolf elegantly said, all the lives we ever lived and all the lives to be are full of trees and changing leaves.